Hello, I'm your host, Leonard Duncan. Welcome to a new episode of ATV-TALK and Motorsports Podcast. Please join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We bring you interviews with industry professionals, live events, live news about the motorsports industry in every episode. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to Shop Talk with Leonard Duncan, a new segment on ATV Talk, a motorsports podcast. Hey, desert season is soon to be on us, and it's time to get your machines prepped and ready to go to the desert. This is something that most people don't realize. All of the current shops, they're always going to be super busy. All of the dealerships, they're going to be busy. So you need to start preparing early. We're a little late in our preparation time for a show like this because Halloween is just a few days away. But that doesn't mean that you can't get your machine ready in your garage, get the oil changed. Hey, this is a key. You want to start the season with fresh oil in the machine because it's the lifeblood. It's what's going to keep that motor reliable, keep you out there riding in the dunes and having a great time. These are also things that we get into the discussions in the shop all the time about how often you should change your oil. This is super critical. I believe it's something that you should do every trip. Monitor your hours, keep a journal so that you can log it, and you always know how fresh the oil is in your machine. You do want it to live a long time, so make sure you get that oil changed often. Air filters. This is another portion of your machine that's critical. Make sure you get them washed and prepped early so that they can dry. And when you put the oil on, then you don't have any failure with the filter being wet and the oil getting sucked through. Air filter maintenance is something that I get really critical on because if you suck dirt through your engines, especially your two-stroke engines, you're done. You know, one dose of dirt will ruin that engine. Your four strokes sometimes can live through a dose of dirt, but your two strokes can't. So make sure that you get those air filters cleaned. Every 5 gallons of gas is my recommendation of making sure you get a clean filter on the machine. When you're out there on your trips, make sure you have multiple filters to change, so that you're getting it every 5 gallons of gas. Other things that you need to prep and check and make sure, gas tanks need to be flushed to make sure that there's any debris or problems with your Petcocks or the Petcock strainers. This is critical. Your machines are probably older. You've probably ridden them for a number of years. So you want to make sure that you're doing the maintenance on this so that you don't have to bring it into the shop and spend a lot of money making sure that you've taken care of this. This is something that if anybody has came to where I work, they know that, I'm going over this with everybody all the time. It's critical that you stay on top of these things. It also allows you to roll right into cleaning the carburetor. If your fuel tank is clean and the Petcock is clean and the strainer's clean, you got to make sure that the carburetor is clean. I am critical with the style of fuels that we use. We'll get into that on another episode, but just make sure that those carburetors are clean and the float valves are cleaned out. Your pilot jets are clean. The chemicals or the product that you use off the shelf is critical to make sure that you can get that old debris or old built up gas gum out of there and keep it clean so that you start the season off fresh. Spark plugs, on your two strokes, make sure you get a fresh spark plug in the machine. You can gap that and make sure you go to the manual for this. You should have a service manual for your machine for any of the torque specifications for your drain plugs or anything else that you're working on. These things are all critical so that your first trip out, you're making sure that you have no problems. Another thing that you should do is you should put the machine up on a stand and roll the rear wheels, to check that rear carrier. This is also a time to check the chain and sprockets to make sure that they're in good working condition. Most people just look at their machine, it rolls, we're good, throw it in the truck and go and have a great time. Well, if your carrier bearings or if your chain and sprockets are worn, you're not going to have a great time because something's going to fail It's going to cost you more money than it should to repair it. If you get it before it fails, it's one price. If it fails and you ride it and then damage a carrier, maybe it explodes, and then you have to buy a new carrier, a new axle, maybe a new axle nut. This gets super costly. Maybe may end your season for riding that particular machine. So get on that ahead of time. I know again we're a little late in talking about some of these things. If you're going out Thanksgiving, hey, we still have a little bit of time to make these things happen. If you're going out Halloween, that's, like I said, just a couple days away. Are you looking for the best suspension technology for your sport ATV? Look no further than Ela Suspension, the industry leader in sport ATV suspension technology. With championship wins in prestigious events such as the Dakar Rally, SCORE, Best in the Desert, ATV MX, Cross Country, and Works, Ela Suspension has established itself as the go-to choice for athletes and enthusiasts alike. But they don't just stop at ATVs. They're constantly expanding into new markets, including UTVs, trucks, SUVs, pit bikes, snowmobiles, and more. Their commitment to innovation and quality means they're always looking to improve and adapt so you can enjoy a smooth ride wherever you go. Want to learn more about what Ela Suspension can do for you? Visit their website at elkasuspension.com or give them a call at 450-655-4855. They will always be happy to answer your questions and help you find the perfect suspension solution for your needs. There's other things that you can look at on your machine, checking your throttle cables, your clutch cable, making sure that they're in good condition. It is critical to probably start every season with fresh, but I know that might be a little ridiculous. Cables do last a number of years as long as you keep the dirt out of them. If you've had a get off in the prior season, it's probably a good idea to replace those cables to start fresh again, so that you don't have any issues. Get the dirt out of the thumb throttle or the twist throttle, whichever you use, to make sure that there's no issues. Looking over the motor mounts, checking your coolant. These are all things that need to be done. If you had an issue on your last trip and you didn't check your coolant, or you didn't do some of the recommended testing to make sure that your machine is in good condition, now is the time to do it. Like I said, all of the shops that are going to be able to help you and get your engine back up to snuff or help you with some of the things you need done on your machine, they're probably all very, very busy, and they're not going to have time to help you take care of these things. So these are all topics that I get into with everybody because we are so busy all the time. I have to plan months, sometimes 6-8 weeks out before I can take a machine in. Well, that's not going to work to get you for Thanksgiving. That might get you to New Year's if you're lucky, but that's just at my shop. Other shops might be able to get you in a little quicker and take care of it from there.
Cool. Is that like how to prep your machine?
That's some of the stuff that goes into it. Those are things that you can look into it
For what?
to get ready to go to the desert.
Okay.
You know, how to prep your machine, it's a little more difficult than that, because if you're going to talk about how to change the oil or how to check every nut and bolt, which you have to have the factory service manual, a torque wrench to do it correctly. It's super critical that you have these tools, in your shop, in your garage, at your disposal, so that you'll know what to do and you know how to do it correctly. If you don't, you're going to need to bring it to the shop. You're going to need to bring it to a professional that has these tools to do it for you. Some people are probably listening to this and scoffing a little bit. Oh, I've been doing it for years without it. Well, I was at a Supercross race and I did a lot of work pre this time in my life without a torque wrench. There were still specific things that we torqued, but I didn't get so critical with it until I watched a Team Honda mechanic put on a front fender on Ricky Carmichael's machine, and he torqued it. He torqued the front fender bolts. Okay, some people are thinking that's overkill. No, that's professionalism. That's doing the job exactly as the manual tells you to do it and working on the machine the way the factory, the original manufacturer, wanted it done. So you don't stretch the bolts, you don't damage the collars. It's all working the way it's supposed to, and you're not going to have a failure that way. It doesn't mean that like any mechanical device that you use, it's human made. All human devices fail because we're imperfect. So you have to understand that things do fail, but if you take all the steps you can to prevent them, the likelihood of you having failures goes way down. Another deal for your sand dune riders that you overlook are your brakes. If you're riding some of the older machines, flushing that brake fluid out, putting fresh brake fluid in, checking the thickness of the pads, this is critical because as those pads wear down in the sand, the brakes don't function quite as well. If the brake fluid starts to break down and corrode, because it does, then your brakes aren't going to function. And if your brakes don't function, that can cause some other issues for you. That could cause an accident. You could end up not being able to stop and run into one of your friends or a family member out in the dunes, and you just don't want to do that. So make sure you get all of those items checked as well. Go to that service manual. It talks about whether it's a .3 or a .4 brake fluid that you want to use. They also give you some tips on how to bleed those brakes. Your professional shops also have devices or tools that make it a little easier for them. We have a power bleeder that bleeds the brakes or helps us bleed brakes faster and more efficiently that we use at work, my shop. So
What if you don't have that?
if you don't have a power bleeder, it's going to be a slow process because you have to gravity bleed. Gravity bleed takes time because you have to pump the lever and get the fluid to slowly work its way through the line. Sometimes this process happens really quick. Other times it doesn't. So you just have to be patient with it and get the fluid to work its way through the line and get as much of the air out or all of the air out so that your brakes function properly. There's so much that we can talk about, and it always comes back to safety is key. Everything that I'm telling you is safety first. You have front wheel bearings. Those should probably be checked as well. You have ball joints up in the front, tie rod ends. Make sure those are all tight. It's critical to make sure that you don't have issues. When I was race prepping machines all the time, and you're at the races, you always go to the items that can hurt the individual rider. Check the brakes first, make sure that the calipers are torqued properly, make sure that the brakes are functioning. Then you move on to your linkage, your tie rods, your rear shock linkage, and start checking, making sure that all the bolts and nuts are tight or torqued to the factory spec so that there are no issues with those. These are all things that most people roll their machines in the garage, forget about them. They may change the air filter, put gas in it, change the oil, run them. Most of them are not recreational toys, even though that's what you're using them for. The factories have built high-tech machines, especially the modern four-strokes. These are single-cylinder Indy cars, and they're really high-tech. You need to make sure that you're looking after them properly. If you're not, that's why they have professionals like myself that will take care of them for you. Where if you're using the fuel-injected machines, you may need a computer or some type of device that's reading the systems to tell you what sensors failing, or if you've had a sensor failure so that we can repair that, a wiring harness failure something like that. Technology is not foolproof nowadays. They use a light gauge wire where if you've been in the industry a long time and you came from the two-stroke era, from the 250R, the Banshee, the gauge of wire they used was thicker. It was more durable. Some of these machines are still running the OEM componentry today. You will not see this in the modern day machines. The wires are thinner, they're smaller gauge, and they're just not going to last as long. So make sure you check into those as well. Are you ready to be captivated by one of nature's masterpieces? Discover the breathtaking beauty of Antelope Slot Canyon, a natural wonder in Page, Arizona. Join us on a guided tour and immerse yourself in the mystical light beams, rich colors, and serene landscapes. With tours at prime sunbeam hours, experience photographer's paradise and capture memories that will last a lifetime. Comfortable shoes, a camera, and a smile are all you need for this adventure. Book your journey today at Antelope Slot Canyon Tours and let the canyon enchant you. Please visit us now, antelopeslotcanyon.com, for more details. Everything that we just covered not only covers your ATVs, but it covers your UTVs and your motorcycles as well. And when you're out checking over your UTV, all of the same processes are the same. Same with your, your dirt bikes, your two-wheel motorcycles, two strokes or four strokes. All of the same things apply. They're so closely related. So make sure that you're out taking care of these things so that you can have a great time with your family this coming desert season and in the future desert seasons. We want them to live a long time.
What is a desert season?
So desert season is the time of year when it cools off out in the sand dunes and allows everyone to go ride their machines in the sand dunes. Well, you can go to the hard packed desert as well. It's just a time to go play in our Southern California deserts when the temperatures are cooler. Because in the summer times, it's 100 plus degrees out there and nobody wants to go ride in those temperatures. So it gets down into the 80s, the 70s, sometimes the 60s. Some of your mornings or nights are in the 40s, but it allows you to go out there and play and have a good time in your whatever sand vehicle you have, your UTV, your buggy, your motorcycle, your ATV. Be safe. Make sure you have all your proper safety gear checked as well. Your helmets, your gloves, your boots, your goggles. All of those things are just as important to check and make sure they're in good working order, as well as your machines.
So, to you, what's your desert day looks like? Usually,
A desert day for me. So you get up leisure whenever you feel like it. Usually it's a early morning because all of us are early risers. You get up and you want to go on that first morning ride. So if you didn't prep your machine the night before, get a clean air filter in it or mix your fuel, you're doing it that morning. You're putting the air filter on it. You're looking over your chain, making sure it's adjusted or lubed. If you're out there in the dunes, you can use chain lube. Sand sticks to it. I like to use WD-40 in that application or Maxima MPPL. It's the same basic product, but so the sand doesn't stick to it. But you look over the machine and make sure that everything's working correctly so that there's no issues. Check the coolant, check your oil, get a clean filter on it, get the tank filled up, make sure that your partners that you're going to go ride with, that they've checked their machines and that everybody's ready to go. Then usually we'll grab something to eat and drink really quick. And then you're firing those machines up and you're off out on the trails. You go ride for a couple hours. Maybe sometimes it's a 3-4 hour ride. And you come back, grab something to drink, sit around in the lawn chairs, talk about the ride, laugh because you roosted your buddy, or laugh because he roosted you. However it is, get some lunch and then start all over again. Prep that machine for the next ride. If you've went out on a 3 or 4 hour ride, your air filter's dirty. It's time to make sure you get a clean one on there, and make sure that it's good to go, and that you're protecting that engine. You have to protect that engine, because if you don't, the repair bill is going to, it's going to ruin the season for you. Most of your mechanics are so busy they don't have time to fix your engine in 2 or 3 weeks. So keep your air filters clean.
Do you prefer a nighttime desert ride or early morning one?
I prefer the early morning because I don't see as well at night as I used to. And I don't really like the cold. It's generally cold at night. There are times when it's fun to go ride at night, but that for me, that's more in the hard pack, more a specific designated style of riding. It's not a recreational ride when I would prefer to ride at night. I just don't have as much fun. So I'm a daytime guy. There are people that love to ride at night, and they make some extremely awesome light setups so that you can ride at night with no issues.
What would you say to somebody that's going to the desert for the first time? What is some advice, maybe, something before they ride or when they're riding that they should do?
So if you're going to go to the desert for the first time, make sure that the people that you're going with are not teaching you how to ride machines that are bigger or more powerful than you can handle. And please keep the alcohol away from it. You're learning something new. These machines are definitely harder to control. There's braking and throttle control. You need to be clear-headed. Make sure you wear all the proper safety gear: helmets, chest protector, gloves, boots, long sleeves, pants. You want to be as protected and safe as possible. You will see people out there riding in a helmet and tennis shoes and shorts. Well, that might be somebody that's been riding for 20 or 30 years, and they can take a risk with their own skin. But if you're just learning, that's not where you want to go, because you don't want to hurt yourself the first time out and then be scared of it. The proper size machine, the proper education, understanding where the brake is, the throttle, how they work. The teacher makes sure that they're clear on what the controls do and don't do. And don't have them take you out into the big dunes right off. There's a lot of little dunes that you can learn how to ride in. You can have a great time out there on some of the sand tracks that they have for, I'm gonna say kids, but I see the adults playing on the sand tracks as well, the little berm tracks, and you'll see kids riding them for hours and hours and hours. Go ride around those for a little bit. Get your feet wet. Understand what you're doing. Learn how to brake and gas. It is a lot of fun, but there also is a owner's manual on some machines that goes over how to ride it. You might want to read that as well. Just make sure you got a good teacher.
What are some spots that you like, that you've gone to the desert, that you would recommend people that are in like South California or other deserts that you like?
I like going to Akatia. It's a hard pack environment. That's where I have most of the fun when I ride. There's washes, there's flat desert, there's whoops. That's just where I enjoy going more so. You can go to Superstition that has both of that. It has some dune areas. There are some rocks out there, some sand washes, where you can still go out to the dry lake beds, high speed stuff. It's just funner for me. It's more like what you're going to get at a desert race, which is something that I prefer. If you're going to go dune riding, Glamis, Gordon's, Buttercup, all three of those areas are outstanding for whatever kind of dunes that you want to ride, or wherever you want to take your family. Glamis is probably the most famous, but they're all a lot of fun to go ride in. I would probably prefer to take my family to Glamis, out in the washes, and bring them into the dunes from a different area. with a little less traffic, so it's a safer environment. In
Have
my
you
opinion.
ever taken your family to the dunes?
Yeah, I took my daughter to the dunes for the first time, Valeria, the lady that does all the editing. And so we went in UTVs, which anybody that knows me knows that I am the wrong guy to give a steering wheel and put in a UTV. And don't give me instructions on what not to do because that's the first thing that I will do. I borrowed Randy at GPR's YXZ 1000, and we went out to the dunes to go play with my brother on his birthday. And Valeria's very first time in the dunes, very first ride, I went out and rolled the car twice in one ride. And she was a trooper. She finished the ride with me. She laughed and joked about it, but she wouldn't ride with me the rest of the weekend. So make sure that if you have a beginner, that when you're teaching your beginners, that you don't ruin them that way. She rode with Brian Fuller, my buddy, and had a great time riding with him. She felt safe, and it was a lot of fun. I get a little more aggressive out there driving with my brother. You know, we want to rub wheels, we want to make it more racy. And I missed a shift and got in some soft sand and turned the car upside down. You know, I ride the ATVs the same way. I end up upside down on those as well. So it's just the thing that I do. But
Don't do that at home.
try not to do that. You want to keep it shiny side up. That's the recommended way to ride or drive. I have better luck on the two wheels, believe it or not, in the sand dunes than I do on the four or the UTVs. So don't ruin your people's first trip to the sand dunes by crashing your ATV or your UTV with them on there.
What are your top essential things that's like you must take this for your first desert weekend?
Items that you must take with you. You got to take a helmet. You got to take goggles. You got to take sunglasses. You want to take, depending on what you're staying in, you want to make sure you have warm clothes for the evening. You want to have the proper style of riding gear. Make sure you take plenty of water. If you're a first timer there, you need a compass so that you know where you are, and maybe a map. Just a little map of the area so that you understand where you are. Pick a landmark, when you go riding so that you can always come back to it. So when you get back up on top of the big dunes, you can find that landmark and always go back that direction to your campsite, whether it be on the north, east, west, or southern side of the environment that you're riding in. These are just little things that you can fold up and put inside your hoodie or inside your jacket or your fanny pack or your backpack, whatever it is that you're carrying with you on your machine.
Is there anything else you want to tell the people about the desert season? Is that always in November?
It always starts generally the latter part of October when the temperature cools off and ends generally in the beginning of April. One of the things that you should take into consideration is respect the desert. Make sure you clean up. If you carry it in, carry it out. Respect your machines. This is something is what I do, is because I get to fix them all after they get abused and broken. You need to take better care of them. Keep the air filters clean. Run good quality, real gasoline. If you want to know what real gasoline is, you can call me at work. I'll explain it to you. We'll get into a real gasoline conversation one day on the show, and we can have the discussions, the pros and the cons to that. But keep your air filters clean, change your oil, respect the desert, and respect the people out there at the desert. You're all going to have a great time. So, consider the rules of the road like you do in the desert. There is an etiquette that isn't taught anymore, and etiquette is crucial in the desert. When we were younger learning, if you didn't follow the etiquette, you didn't ride with a lot of the groups, or you weren't asked back to the desert. So make sure that you think about all of the other people out there as well. These high-powered buggies and UTVs, they're going to come over those dunes really quick. So look for those tall flags and listen for those loud exhaust pipes.
Is that what you mean by etiquette? Or, can you teach us about that a little
Etiquette
bit?
is what side of the road you drive on. It's the same as when you're on the road driving to and from the desert. There's a right side and a left side. Make sure you drive on the proper side of the road. If you see a witch's eye, make sure that you're informing the people behind you, especially if you're on an ATV or a motorcycle, raise your hand, let the person behind you know that there's a witch's eye or there's danger, so that they can adjust accordingly for that. When you're out with your buddies, you can roost them, but when you're out with your family, you got to ride a little differently, because the last thing that you want to do is roost your wife, because most likely you'll be sleeping out in the trailer, and that's no fun. It's cold and wet, and you're not gonna be happy. So just don't do that. She's not gonna like it. Other forms of etiquette are talking about, stay in line, make sure that you're not driving off in other directions and not following the lead vehicle in your caravan, whether you're 3, 4, 10 deep, whatever it is. The etiquette is the last person is the sweep rider, the first person is the line. So stay in line, follow the groove that first person lays out for you, and make sure that you're always looking over your shoulder. You do have a sweeper. It's usually one of your better riders that's going to be behind, making sure that everybody's okay. If your leader is leading correctly, he's also looping around to make sure that he's always seeing the sweep guy or sweep person, and making sure that everybody stays together in the group. And always buddy up. Don't go ride by yourself. You want to make sure you take a buddy, because if you fall off or your buddy falls off, somebody needs to make the phone call to get your help or to get you towed in or towed out if you have an issue. Be as safe as you possibly can. Have a first aid kit in your truck or your motorhome or your camper, whatever it is. These are all things that everybody with common sense knows that you need to do. I'm a pretty much keep the alcohol away from it, slow it down. At night when you're done riding, there's plenty of time to drink as much beer as you want to. I know that everybody wants to go on a cool ride and then have a sip of beer out in the dunes. It's pretty cool. Beer always tastes better after a long ride, but it's not something that you should do. So just keep it to a minimum. But enjoy. The dunes are beautiful, and it's a blessing that we're allowed to use it. So make sure that you respect it and protect it, because if you don't, we're going to lose it and we're not going to be able to use it. Get your permits from wherever it is that you need to buy them, from the dealerships or the rangers or whoever. Respect the rangers. They're just out there doing a job. Remember, it's a job. It's not everything about who they are. Some of them even enjoy going out to the dunes and riding and recreational motorcycle riding, or ATVs or UTVs, just like we do when they're off. So give those people that are out there enforcing the rules a little bit of slack. I know some of them are a little hard-headed, but do the best you can to treat them with respect. Hey everybody, this was Shop Talk with Leonard Duncan. If you could subscribe, follow us, share us. If you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss, please let us know in the comments below. And thank you very much for listening. We'll be back shortly with another episode. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to share us with your family and friends. The podcast is available on all streaming platforms, and you can find us on social media as ATV-TALK Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter.